Hello and welcome. No, you know what? That full start was funny, so I'm leaving it in. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the weekly Waypoint. Can you believe I'm still doing these today? We are playing Forza Horizon 3 because, well, I had a few plans for what to record last night. I was very sleepy when I recorded this, so we'll also use that as an excuse for my shoddy driving. But I was going to record some Halo. I was like, you know what, we haven't done like a deathmatch in a while, and this did used to be called the weekly deathmatch after all, but I'm not really playing anything deathmatchy. So we'll do Halo. I'll boot up the Halo Master Chief Collection. 26 gigabyte update. I was like, okay, we'll do the Crew 2 again. People can have 2 weeks in a row of a racing game. It's fine. People seem to click on these videos now, and I'm not noticing a significant dip. When it's a racing game, I think I can get away with this. The Crew 2 would not boot. It just showed me the logo both times when I properly quit out of it, and I was just getting really tired and really mad, and I thought, you know what? Fuck it. Forza Horizon 3, because I do not have 4 or 5 installed, and you know what? I might continue playing some Forza Horizon 3 after this weekly Waypoint, because there's still some achievements for me to farm in this game, and also there's still some just general progression in this game for me to do, and also it's just fun. It holds up really well. It still looks gorgeous. I was going to say beautiful, I changed my mind. It's 30 frames a second, but it's a very smooth 30 frames a second. I hope Starfield is this kind of 30 frames a second. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is a certain vibe to Forza Horizon 3 and 4 that there isn't in 5, and I cannot put my finger on what it is. I can't put my finger on what's missing, but there is something about 3 and 4 which, I don't know, like, obviously I loved 5. I gushed about 5 when it came out, and I'm gonna go back and play more of 5. I've still barely touched the second DLC, mostly because I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't something more wacky, even though we already got a Hot Wheels DLC for 5 as well. But I think I was hoping it would be like an urban area. I think a lot of people were. But the rally stuff, I did check it out. I think it was for a stream I checked it out, and it was pretty fun. Or I was testing the Game Pass streaming. So it was the opposite of upstreaming, it was downstreaming. I still think that should be terminology that people use, but they don't. Anyway, the one thing I will give Forza Horizon 3, because, you know, it's aged spectacularly. If someone told me this was a brand new game, I would not disbelieve them. I would not think they were lying. But, you know, the car handling is a little bit rougher compared to 4 and 5. But that's about it. That's pretty much the only thing I've got to say. I think Forza Horizon 3 has the best UI. Like this, what you're seeing right now, I just love it. Something about it, I just love it. Anyway, you catch me in the middle of what might be a new interest forming. You might hear me talking about this next week. Probably not because I'm broke and I can't afford it, but novelizations. I know, it's weird, right? So back in the day with Doctor Who, we're talking Doctor Who, they used to do, and I think for like Star Trek as well, they used to do novelizations of episodes, primarily because box set VHS wasn't a thing yet. And, you know, the only real time when those episodes would air on TV was when the network chose to air them on TV, so you were kind of stuck with that. So you would have to go out and buy these novelizations if you wanted to specifically relive particular episodes. That's the vibe I'm getting from novelizations. That's the general, what I can gather. That's the information I've been able to find on why novelizations exist. So I've never really given them the time of day, right? They're a thing, they exist, they are what they are. But here's the interesting thing, they're still doing them, and in fact fairly recently there's been a push to novelize some of the new Doctor Who episodes, like from Christopher Eccleston onwards. And I'm like, okay, that's a bit odd, but I guess it's kind of like a collector's thing or whatever. But I follow this wonderful Twitter account called Bad Wolf Archives, and they just posted some of their favourite parts of a novelisation of Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special episode. And I was reading through the tidbits they chose to share, and now I want novelizations in my life. You know, maybe not for something like Star Wars. I know there's novelizations of the Star Wars movies. Like, this would be something. It would be novelizations for things that I am like super highly interested in. And you know, I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I'm not like a massive, huge fan of the original movies, that kind of thing. Whereas I would argue with Doctor Who, I am at the level of fandom where I would probably get a lot out of these novelizations, and what I think is most interesting to me about them is that they seem to have been written after the fact, not in tandem with the episodes. So you've got Russell T Davies writing Rose, like years and years after he originally wrote the script for it, and I saw in the reviews someone said that apparently Russell did not have the script at hand, so he basically did it from memory. But like, it's very faithful to the original episode, obviously, but there's little bits of additional information, some things are portrayed slightly differently, and it's just like a touch-up on the original story of that episode, and I didn't realise this, but I'm really into that shit, it turns out, and I really want that. They have not done every episode, thankfully, because I would not be able to afford every single book, and I don't want every novelization of the episodes they have done. Like, for instance, they've novelized some episodes which I would not consider to be particularly good episodes, like the Crimson Horror. Also, not every episode is novelized by the person who wrote the script for it, which I have some mixed feelings about. And so, while you've got some really cool ones like Russell T Davies writing Rose and Stephen Moffat writing Day of the Doctor, you also have books which I haven't actually looked into the reviews for yet, but they've been novelized by authors who didn't write the scripts, so I'm not sure how much they could add to it. It might be a fool's errand going into a novelization expecting new content or a new experience. Maybe I'm setting myself up for failure there, but I also expect it to be a really fun way to re-experience a story that I know well in a different and longer format. So I think fairly soon I'm going to be picking up Rose for my first novelization. And here's the other thing. You may have heard me talk about in the past how I find it really difficult to read through paperback books nowadays, and I find it a lot easier to listen to audiobooks. And in fact, it seems like with these novelizations, audiobooks are kind of a big thing with them. Like, it seems like a lot of the ways people tend to enjoy these novelizations traditionally is through audiobook. But I'm actually leaning the other way on this. I want them as physical paperback books, partly as like a collection thing, because I think it would be cool to have an episode of Doctor Who in my bookshelf. But also, well, partially I miss reading physical books. Like, there is something about having a physical book, which is nice. But also, I feel like I want to take my time with these books, as opposed to something like Wheel of Time, where the narrative is completely fresh to me, and I want to experience the story in a way where I'm not going to wander off with ADHD and find it difficult to get through, but instead be able to read it and hear the story while I'm walking places and doing other things. Because this is a story I've experienced before in another medium, I'm okay taking ages with it, and I want to be able to read it at my own speed and soak it in. So even if it is like, I hear the Terrence Dicks books of the past were very one-to-one in terms of novelizations with like the actual content of the episode. Even if it's very one-to-one, it's still like, you know, a different way of experiencing it, and it's still something that's gonna, like, it's gonna take me longer than the length of the episode would, so just by its very nature it's gonna have some extra detail in there. Like, it would be fascinating experiencing certain episodes from the Doctor's point of view. I hear that with Day of the Doctor, Stephen Moffat has a lot of fun with point of view, because there are certain parts of the episode which aren't in the book, because there's no point of view chapters in the book, which come from the people where the events were happening, so the book's written slightly differently to get around that. And as I'm saying those words, I realise some people might find that boring, but that is my shit. That is super interesting to me. And I guess that's what I mean when I say I'm a pretty big... You have to be a pretty big fan of something to want to read the novelisation of it, it feels like. And I think with Doctor Who that might be the case. I can also see myself being interested in Star Trek novelisations later down the line. Like, as opposed to being like, oh, I miss the original series, I'm going to go back and rewatch those episodes. Maybe I'll look into some of the novelizations of those episodes if they exist. I'm sure they exist. Because, especially for that era of television, they were a little bit limited with budget and technology as to what they were able to do, so it might be interested. Shit, now I'm getting interested in reading old Star Trek novelizations. I wish I had more time in my life, because you've just seen me take 10 months to read through a Wheel of Time book, and you might be wondering why that took me 10 months to read through if you're not watching those videos. This is why. This is why. Because I get distracted by things like Doctor Who novelizations suddenly, out of nowhere, and they grip me with this, like, I've taken most of a weekly Waypoint talking about this. Anyway, there's that. If you listened to that entire ramble, thank you. You're clearly a mega fan of me. No, that sounded weird. That sounded egotistical. You're clearly... Anyway. Okay, moving on. I'm kind of glad I've got this new fixation. Is it a fixation? It will be if I get into them. This potential fixation to tide me over in terms of talking about things this week, because honestly, I've spent most of this week doing things I told you about last week. I've been continuing my adventures through RuneScape 3. I got booted out of my adventures in WoW Hardcore Classic because, I mean, the PTR shut down for a week, but it'll be back up next week, and I fully intend to make a new character and carry on there. I could give some more info on what I've been doing in RuneScape, because when I started I did the Fort for Room 3 stuff and I got up to date with that. I've been learning how to do bossing, and by learning how to do bossing I mean I've been face rolling the Barrows Brothers. I think I've opened about 45 Barrows Brothers chests, and you might be thinking, Christian, isn't that 2006 content? Yes it is, I'm an Iron Man. I can't buy this shit off a Grand Exchange. I've got to do 2006 content, okay? But I'm actually enjoying it. It gives me the same feeling as running old raids in World of Warcraft to get Mount and Transmog stuff for my collection, because not only am I running Barrows Brothers because it is good loot for where I currently am at my point in my RuneScape journey on my Iron Man, but also it's good because, you know, there is low chances of boss pets dropping, and there's also a collection log, so even if I don't need the gear that's dropping, I get to do a collection log, and when you fill that out you get a title. I believe for the Barrows Brothers it's Grave Robber, so it's very much geared towards my kind of gameplay in that respect, and I think when I get more into the PVM side of RuneScape, which is PvE, player versus monster, you know what I mean, I think bossing is definitely going to be up my alley. I do worry slightly about the fact that I'm an Iron Man though, because that does mean I pretty much have to solo bosses if I want to get any loot from them, and I'm not sure how possible that's going to be for late game bosses. I think I just heard Jetpack Joyride music. What the fuck? I think someone just walked past my house playing Jetpack Joyride. Wow. Talk about recognizing a random game by its music. By the way, while I've been playing RuneScape, I've been taking the opportunity to spend a lot of it watching Star Trek, because RuneScape is a very second monitor kind of a game a lot of the time. While it's got some very high intensity, you know, activities such as bossing, it's also... Sorry, I think someone with supernatural powers just tried to kill me. I lived, bitch. It's also got some very AFK activities, such as woodcutting and fishing, which are perfect to watch some Star Trek episodes in. So I was talking about Star Trek novelizations earlier. I am getting towards the final 10 episodes of Star Trek The Original Series, and when I've watched those, I will be doing a thoughts on Star Trek The Original Series, which, I mean... I have said in the past it's inadvisable to do a thoughts on of an entire show. I should do that more on a season by season basis, but the way Star Trek The Original Series is formatted, there's no kind of overarching plots, there's no kind of character development across episodes kind of a thing, so I think it's okay. And then I've got the movies, which I'm not sure how I'm going to approach in terms of making videos about yet. Maybe individually, maybe all at once at the end. I'm not sure yet, but We'll see. If you know anything about the Star Trek movies, maybe give me some idea of what I should do there. But then I'll finally be making my way onto the next generation. And then, you know, Voyager and Deep Space Nine and Enterprise or whatever actual publication order. Publication? Publishing? Production? Production order. Different words for different mediums. Anyway, still on my trek? Yeah, still on my trek towards becoming a Star Trek mega fan. That makes sense. That is a sentence which you can use in the English language. I've also been spending a lot of my time playing RuneScape watching Hanani, who is, or Hanani? I don't know how to pronounce her name, but she's an old school RuneScape content creator, and I feel very validated because she's basically me, because like she talks about how she doesn't like learning new things, and she complains about the overcomplication of iron to-do lists, and she loves woodcutting, so she's basically me. She's just like me for real. She also has a similar sense of humor, I feel. So go, I guess I'm plugging other YouTubers now. Go watch Hanani. Hananie. Her latest video was doing woodcutting in game by woodcutting in real life. It was some good fucking content. Anyway, thank you for watching this content, which isn't quite as good, but you know, it's alright. It's alright. I like my stuff. Oh, and so do you guys apparently, because as of the time of recording, we're at 199 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, hey, you could do me a big solid right now. Or if you are subscribed, you could totally prank me, but please don't do that.